The latest Hype Train IEM is here, but I think it's a little bit more than that. Let's get right into it. Hey folks, I'm Matthew from Bloom Audio, and today we have the highly anticipated Zen's Top Pro. At $499 with a driver configuration of 8 balanced armatures and 2 dynamic drivers, we have a lot to get into here, so let's just not waste any time. Zen's Top Pro starts off strong in the aesthetics department, coming with a faceplate that you could expect from something like the Monarch MK3 and its disco configuration. I think the faceplate here is very intricate and ornate. It just has a very tasteful design approach to it. I don't think it's too gaudy, but I do think it does enough to capture the eye here. The semi-translucent bottom half portion of the IEM is also really cool to me, as seeing the inner workings of the IEM always just shows you how much detail and design focus goes into making these IEMs. With a 6.1mm nozzle size, the general size and fit of this shell is really accommodating to my ear. If you're sensitive to larger shells, I don't think Zen's Top Pro should be a problem here, as I was able to go deep into my listening sessions with little to no fatigue really at all. Now as for the cable, kind of feel like Zen's dropped the ball here. I'm not too big of a fan of this cable, and I do wish they took a little bit of a different design approach here with this one. The overall braiding of it is nice. I think it has a thin characteristic to it that isn't bad. It doesn't feel overly weighty, and it doesn't feel overly thin to where I think it kinks a lot. However, the hardware or lack of hardware on this set is a little bit of a bummer. The plastic Y-split and terminating end of this cable just kind of feel cheap to me, and the chin slider is pretty much useless. It consistently fell down during all my listening sessions, so yeah, not a huge fan of the chin slider or the overall hardware on this cable really at all. However, the modulating end is really all I care about here, as long as I'm able to use 4.4mm, even though Super Review calls me a degenerate for using it, I'm still going to. So now as for the accessories included with Top Pro here, we get a pretty good assortment of goodies, which I would expect at the $500 price tag. I really like the travel case here. It is a little bit oversized, so you can carry more than just the IEMs here. If you want to carry a few adapters, or maybe a DAC dongle, something like that, it is really good for that and just throwing in your bag and bringing with you on the go. You also get a nice cloth cinch bag here that can protect your IEMs from getting scratched, whether you're throwing them in your bag or just bringing them with you on the go. You're not going to worry about getting deep scratches on the faceplate using this bag here. Of course, with this being a modulating end cable, you get the 4.4, you get the 3.5, and you get a 3.5 to 6.3 adapter, which just makes source swapping on desktop gear really easy. As for the ear tips here, you actually get a pretty nice assortment of tips. You get some for sound balance, for strong atmosphere and low frequency cohesion, as well as sound insulation and noise reduction. I think it was nice to include those, but I'll be real with y'all, I was not using those. I used the Eltec Baroque with these pretty much exclusively. The nozzle was pretty much perfect for the Eltec Baroque, and as soon as I got that seal, I pretty much didn't look back. I'm pretty picky about build, design, aesthetics, accessories, etc. So for my expectations, I think this was met here. I think Zen's did a good job of making a satisfying unboxing experience, so tip my cap to Zen's. Alrighty, now we can move into the good stuff. We're to start off with the frequency response graph that is going to give us a good high-level overview of Zen's Top Pro sound signature. As always, you have the graph on your screen. I have it here on my phone. Alrighty, starting off in the low end, we have a pretty decent response here, a pretty healthy serving of bass, but for the most part, I wouldn't expect something super bassy in the sound profile here. I think it satisfies, but we're going to break it down a little bit further in subjective sound. As for the low mids and transitioning into the mid range as a whole, there's actually a pretty good bump here in the low mids that adds a little bit of weight, a little bit of coloration to the mid-range, but as a whole, this is a very neutral mid-range tuning, not a whole lot of coloration here. So if that is your thing, if you are looking for a neutral mid-range, this is definitely the set for you. For me, I think I would have opted for a little bit more engagement here in the mid-range, but as a whole, the tuning here is pretty good. And as for the upper mid-range, this is actually probably the highlight of the sound signature for me. Vocals come through really clean, very transparent. They have a slight forward nature to them, so if you are prone to some upper mid-range energy, maybe just make note of that. But to my ears, I really loved how vocals came through on this set. And finishing up with the treble here, I actually really like this tuning approach. I think it blends technical performance with just something that is very rich and engaging. If you're a little bit more sensitive to treble spice, the upper treble could maybe be a little bit hairy for you, but for the most part, for my listening, I just really enjoyed it. Alrighty, now moving into my subjective notes on this set. We're starting off with the bass, and like I kind of mentioned in objective sound, this is probably the most uninspiring portion of the sound signature to my ears. For the bass tuning, I don't think it's bad by any means. I just don't think it really scratches that itch for me. I do like slightly bass heavier tunings on IEM, so while I can appreciate Zen's Top Pro, it just doesn't really align with my preferences. There is a slight sub bass emphasis, so you do get some decent rumble, but as for the mid bass, I just think it lacks character. I think it lacks engagement. When kick drums come through in a mix, when the guitar crunch and bass overtones come in on a song, just doesn't really sound that engaging to me, and that's just the simple way I can put it. Nothing really draws me in about this bass response, but again, you are getting something very clean and transparent, so if you just appreciate quality bass, I think you'll still resonate with Zen's Top Pro, but for those looking for quantity, I don't think that's here in this tuning. However, if you are a fan of EQ, this is an easy fix. You can simply just add a slight bass shelf, because I don't think you really need to touch much of the mid-range or treble at all. Now, it does transition us well into the mid-range, as like I mentioned in objective sound, that slight low mid bump does add some decent engagement here. So as for the mid-range as a whole, everything comes through very clean, very transparent. Everything has a nice timbre to it that just sounds natural to my ears. And with that low mid-range bump, you do get some decent heft to strings, plucks, pulls, and rides. So that really helped my listening in old school rock with Led Zeppelin. And yeah, I didn't find it to be enough for my personal preferences, but for the most part, you do get a really nice mid-range reproduction here that just sounds very natural. I think a lot of listeners will resonate with this mid-range tuning. I think a lot of sets can be overly warm or overly thin. I think Top Pro just meets you right in that middle, gives you something that's very natural and cohesive. But again, the upper mid-range to my ears here really is the highlight of the sound signature. I just think the level of separation and layering vocals have on this set is really top-notch, especially at the $500 price range. Vocal dominant artists like Alice Phoebe Lou just really shine through on this set. A lot of her tracks in her side project, Strong Boy, a track like Fool Around, just comes through with incredible transparency. There is a sense of crispness to the vocals that I just think you really can't get until you spend up to the kilobuck range. So for Top Pro to portray that in the $500 price bracket is really impressive. Finishing up with the treble here, I think this is where Zen's Top Pro really just comes together. This is a treble tuning that I think has liveliness to it. It has engagement, it has energy, it has detail. It really has all the things that I look for in a treble response, and I really did enjoy it in my listening sessions. Now listen, if you are using EQ and you're bumping down some of these upper treble frequencies, I would understand, but to my ears, I just think they really hit the sweet spot here. I think this is a very rich and full treble response that has a lot of detail to offer. I would just find myself bringing up that bass shelf just a little bit with Top Pro, leaving the treble as is, and just really having a very complete all-rounder set that does a lot of things really well. For the most part though, I do understand there is going to be some sibilance that comes through on the set with a treble response of this nature. I think that's just kind of a given with the technicalities you get here. This really is a benchmark set for its technical performance at the $500 price range. So again, if you're a little bit sensitive to treble, energy, and richness, that could be something to make note of here. As for our comparison set here, I brought in the High Senior Crystallis. This is also a new release with 8 balance armatures and 2 dynamic drivers. And I actually don't think these sets could be further apart. Now, before we get into this comparison section, I gotta give a huge shout out to my man, Duck Bloke. I saw that he had this set and also compared it to Top Pro, and I just really want to get my hands on it, and he got me the set in like a day. So go check out his content on Top Pro and Crystallis as well. If you're not watching his content, I don't know what you're doing, because his insight on PEQ and IEM tunings as a whole is just really masterful. So go check out his content, and thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate it. Driver configuration and price aside, I actually think these two line up closest in the aesthetics department. Looking at the cables here, I'm pretty sure they're using the same manufacturer, as the hardware on these sets are pretty much identical. Both of their chin sliders just straight up kind of suck. And again, those plastic terminating ends and overall look and feel of the cable are just really alike here. Crystallis also has a semi-clear shell as well. So just the aesthetic similarities here I found really interesting, but transitioning into the sound, these two cannot be further apart. It's funny when you look at the driver configuration of 2 dynamic drivers and 8 balance armatures, you think to yourself, oh yeah, there should be some similarities here, and there just really isn't, and that is most demonstrated in the bass. pretty apparent right off the bat. Looking at the graphs of these two IMs, Crystalis just has a lot more to offer in the base. Now, I will say Top Pro actually does a pretty good job of competing here in the low mids. This did help them keep somewhat on pace in my rock and hip hop listening, but for the most part, Crystalis was just way more engaging. Now, moving into the upper mids and treble, I think this is where these two really differ, as Crystalis is just way more energetic, and that's going to come with a lot more peaks, a lot more oddities in the upper mid range and treble portion, where Top Pro is much more coherent. I think it has even better resolution and technical detail, where Crystalis is just a little bit all over the place. While Top Pro is very layered and separated and natural, Crystalis can kind of compete with itself at times in the bass and the upper mids and treble. There is just a little bit more congestion here with Crystalis. It's not as effortless in its playback of the upper mids as Top Pro. With the bass response being so large, there are times where the bass and vocals just kind of meet at a similar point, and for my listening, I do like a little bit more separation there in the vocals. And while Crystalis does have pretty good vocal reproduction, it's just not on the same level as Top Pro. I would be lying though if I told you that I didn't prefer Crystalis's bass response oftentimes over Top Pro. There were so many times in my listening session that I was really impressed by Crystalis's general quality and quantity of bass response. I think Top Pro just gets left in the dust in that regard, and Crystalis can really steal the show there. Now, with a bass response this large, with vocals coming through that forward, you're gonna pay the price here with some peaks and oddities in Crystalis's treble response. I think for the most part, until you scale it up with higher volumes, Crystalis was pretty manageable in its treble energy, but as compared to Top Pro, you get a lot of technical detail here without it ever sounding too sibilant to my ears. Now, while I did oftentimes resonate more with Crystalis's more upbeat and lively, energetic sound signature, I just think Top Pro is the better IM here. It's a little bit of a better all-rounder and just does a lot of things that Crystalis can't really do. That mostly resides in the technical performance of Top Pro. It's just layered, it's more separated, it's just a better set in general. And I don't want this to take away from what Crystalis can do at $100 less. I think Crystalis actually has a very nice sound profile. I think this is a proper follow-up to the Mega 5 EST, but when compared to Top Pro, these two are just different, and I think that actually leads me to my closing point about why these two sets can coexist and really offer a lot of good. Top Pro is a $500 benchmark in terms of technical detail. If you want this level of resolution, of layering and separation, you're probably going to spend upwards to $1,000, and to get that in the Top Pro is incredibly impressive. However, this is a set that doesn't offer a specialty tuning like the Crystalis does or the Punch Audio Martillo. This is a set that you kind of build your collection around. If you get this at $500, you can pretty much forget about the hobby for a little bit. You can get those technical details, you can get an all-rounder that is just really good. However, if you want the more specialty tunings, you can start to look in the $200 to $300 price range, maybe some offerings from Zigot, and really get something that complements Top Pro very well. And if you're into EQ, maybe you can just add a bass shelf to Top Pro and make it something that it's not, and add that bass response and add that lively and engaging nature to it that I just don't think it possesses with its stock tuning. The Top Pro has accomplished everything it's set out to do. Hype trains come and go. There are IMs that come into the market, and in the next week, folks have already forgotten about them. That's not Top Pro. If you've been looking for a great all-rounder, if you've been looking for kilobuck technical performance in a $500 set, I wouldn't look any further than the Zenz Top Pro. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out Zenz Top Pro and a lot of other great products at bloomaudio.com. If you're still on the fence about this set and whether it works best for you, I'd recommend reaching out to us at hello@bloomaudio.com. Me and my colleagues have many listening hours on this set and would be happy to discuss this one further with you. You can also just jump into a live chat. We are always eager to talk with folks about gear. We're really excited about some of the offerings we have coming to Bloom Audio, especially Top Pro. Of course, you can always just leave a comment down below if you have a question about Zenz Top Pro or a question about life, sports, movies, video games, whatever it may be. We could just connect down in the comment section below. It'll be fun. Thank you guys so much for the support and for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, as we'll be back soon with more high fidelity audio content.